Genshin Impact has undoubtedly been a massive success many years after its original launch on both mobile devices, PlayStation consoles, and of course on the PC as well, as a free-to-play mobile game with plenty of weird and interesting trappings, which I don't necessarily want to get into today. Now, as the game was originally being revealed and heading into its early beta and launch period, plenty of accusations came flying from many players who basically got to see not just gameplay but also ended up experiencing the closed beta originally, that it was essentially ripping off Zelda Breath of the Wild, which by the time that on 2019, when we got to see Genshin Impact for the very first time, it already had been out for 2 full years. So since then, a lot of kind of things have gone by the wayside, a lot of those memories have kind of dissipated, and we hadn't necessarily heard anything from the developers for a very long time regarding the original criticisms up until today. So not only do we have a couple of brand new articles discussing just what the developers' original reactions were regarding the original accusations that they stole a lot of the gameplay ideas from Breath of the Wild for Genshin Impact, we also have a brand new video as well. So we're going to provide not only a link to the description below for CBR, put up a really interesting article, which I'm going to be linking below if you guys want to check that out, from Leo Reina, but also a Twitter account which originally posted the video from the Genshin Impact FES 2023 Shanghai live event, where the MiHoYo president Daiwei provided a little bit of a personal take on his opinion and what his development team essentially had to deal with as the original accusations of theft arose when Genshin Impact was originally introduced all the way back in 2019. First and foremost, I kind of want to start out with the article because they condense everything relatively well, and then I kind of want to parse a little bit of the video because it is just a lot to kind of go over. First and foremost, the article simply mentions that Genshin Impact studio head addresses early development woes as Zelda plagiarism accusations. Liu Daiwei, the co-founder of the current president of MiHoYo, discussed the challenges of Genshin Impact developers faced during the early conception of the game. At Genshin Impact FES 2023 in Shanghai, China, Wei went over the early development history of the game. Wei acknowledged that if MiHoYo, which is a small team filled with young and inexperienced developers at the time, knew how difficult developing Genshin Impact would be back when the project began in 2017, the studio would have likely given up on it. The lack of an engine and inexperience in creating an open-world game made the development from Genshin Impact more difficult than the studio anticipated. Then they share, of course, an image to the original tweet from Tokino Hyakuru. Link in the description below for their official Twitter post where they kind of shared that video and provide some background information, which we're going to be going over in a second. The article simply continues mentioning that, however, the development team was rejuvenated after the completion of Monster in 2019. Unfortunately, the response towards the closed beta caused to see the game being a ripoff of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Although Wei didn't name Breath of the Wild in the speech, which is a key point that I kind of want to address later, the accusation of Genshin Impact plagiarizing Zelda was a popular criticism. One fan even smashed their PlayStation 4 console as part of the protest. And in the article, they kind of link back to the original ZoogEX original post back on Twitter, which these made the rounds from basically players. I believe those like giving the finger to the MiHoYo original Genshin Impact posters in a presentation event. And basically that one guy who broke a PlayStation 4. There was also a couple of videos coming out of China. This is early back in 2019, where people were just kind of like saying that this was a complete Zelda ripoff and there was really nothing of value for the game. Again, the game wasn't officially out at the time, so those accusations were somewhat interesting to say the least. The article continues. The accusations of plagiarism took a heavy toll on the development team, according to Wei. Many of his colleagues were crying, saying that why this is happening and what did we do wrong. Let's prove ourselves, Wei said. Let's make a part of Genshin that everyone didn't get to see. The establishment of Liu in February of 2020 gave players a better understanding of what MiHoYo was building with Genshin Impact, leading to a more positive reception of the game. Lastly, they mentioned 3 years after its release in September 28th of 2020, Genshin Impact continues to dominate mobile sell charts worldwide. The critical and commercial success of Genshin Impact paved the way for Honkai Rail Star, a sci-fi open-world playing game that took inspirations from its predecessor. Honkai Star Rail is currently available on PC, mobile, and PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, with a port in the works. Genshin Impact is free to play. PlayStation, PlayStation 4, 5, PC, and mobile, and the anime series is in production as well. So the article kind of gives a little bit of a vague notion as to what the original Simply video mentions. I'm gonna once again link in the description below for Tokino Hikaru's original Twitter post, where they basically mentioned that this is from the Genshin Impact FES 2023 China Shanghai digital presentation that they held, and he basically starts talking about when they started their project and back in 2017, and this is Wei talking. At the time, miHoYo was still a small company, and looking back on that time, if he knew later that the production of Genshin Impact would be so difficult, maybe they wouldn't have started making Genshin Impact. And at the time, when they made Genshin, everyone was a young team with very little experience. But when they started on production with a full courage and plenty of passion. But from that time and then on, there were times that they didn't necessarily feel all the love. We don't have our own engine, and we don't have, and they don't know how to make an open world game, is what he mentioned. So we had a very difficult time. Then around 2019, after completing the Mande Castle, according to the translation, but we know it's Mandu, we were really happy with the Mandu, that was the way that it was actually made. Because of a young team, we created an open world game on smartphones. But in 2019, when they did their closed beta, and they put out the closed beta, they were very proud. Although they also mentioned that full of hope, thinking that they actually had done a very good job. But the closed beta response, it was most likely the assumptions that was completely different in a better fashion. So when they did the closed beta, and according to, once again, the translation, they mentioned that they faced unprecedented crises. They mentioned that everyone who just saw the video of the closed beta didn't understand Genshin and what they were trying to do. So for miHoYo, and the Genshin team, not much was very much understood, and there were a lot of misunderstandings. So at the time, the development team was really worried, and they remember a lot of young colleagues crying and saying to him specifically, why is this happening? What did we do wrong? In a crying fashion. But it was useful in a sense, that they could basically turn into courage and become fearless. And that's how they acted. Let's prove ourselves. Let's make a part of Genshin that everyone didn't get to see. And then the second half of 2019, when they showed a little bit more content heading into the launch in February 2020, around that same time, everyone finally started to see what they were really trying to do, and everyone, the players, understood what kind of game they were trying to build. So looking back on those days, the second half of 2019 and early into 2020, everyone in the development team achieved a lot of growth, and that's why they came so far. And then they essentially continues talking about praising his team and what they were able to achieve, and he thanks all the fans for all of the support. Never in his little speech does he mention Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now this is the thing, I'm personally of the opinion that I don't particularly play Genshin Impact. I played it maybe a couple of hours at most. For me personally, it's a free-to-play game with many gacha trappings, which just does not appeal to me in the least. I always said if they actually sold a $60 version of Genshin Impact without all the gacha and the 5-star nonsense and the rerolls and all of that, I would probably play it. But the fact that it's a free-to-play gacha-focused mobile game, which you know what they're chasing is whales, is not something that I'm too interested in checking out myself. Now, as far as the criticisms levied for the game, I think it's undoubtful that, of course, they took a lot of quote-unquote inspiration from Breath of the Wild, and that's okay. Actually, I think if a lot of these developers would just simply choose to admit that they got a lot of inspiration for their game from another game, it would be completely fine. We see a lot of Dark Souls ripoff type games. Dark Souls is the pioneer in that type of genre, and a lot of other games just simply follow. No one really gets too upset that is a, Dark Souls ripoff or a Dark Souls like. In fact, Dark Souls likes has become a thing. So many other games took ideas from Breath of the Wild. So many games have like gliders now, which they didn't have before. Fortnite has gliders now, which it didn't have before. Fortnite has kind of become an amalgamation of all games together. You can create, you can play, you can shoot, you can have fun, you can do everything. No one's too upset or up in arms that Fortnite is taking ideas from other games and implementing them on their game. Sure, there's those cynical players out there who are, still hating on Fortnite in 2023, but at the end of the day, we all kind of understand what it is. It's a money pit for a lot of people, and it is what it is. Some people have fun with it. No one's really gonna get mad. Genshin Impact kind of has fallen into that same category all these years later, and them taking quote-unquote inspirations from another game should be a little bit of a celebrated thing, especially if they come out and admit it. But to pretend and actually not even name Zelda in their speech is kind of like so disingenuous, and I think is what turns a lot of people off from this kind of stuff. Sure, you can rip off a game, you can take their ideas and make them your own and rebrand them and pretend that you didn't do it, but everyone can kind of see through that, and that's really the reality of the situation. Whereas if you just say, I'm paying homage to, or I'm a big fan of, I played this game, this idea gave me that, therefore no one's really going to be too upset about that at the end of the day. Of course, once again, there will be cynics, there will be people who are just going to harp on that at the end of the day, but they're most likely not even playing your game to begin with. So this isn't coming from a place of like someone who hates Genshin Impact. I have no issues with it whatsoever. It's just not something for me personally. But to pretend that they didn't necessarily take ideas from Breath of the Wild is extremely disingenuous on their part to pretend that that's not really the case. But I certainly want to hear your guys' opinions on this video, and certainly what the developers are trying to do. And of course, they're going to continue to do, because, now every game is going to try to see, allegedly, chasing the ideas that Tears of the Kingdom did, and we're just gonna have to wait and see where in like a 2 to 3 year period where every game now has options where you can craft pretty much everything with every piece of items in the entire game and make wacky, crazy experiences, alleging if you're gonna end up pretending that you didn't actually steal that from Tears of the Kingdom. If you're brand new to my channel, though, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching.